Oh, something different.
Genesis chapter 25, verses 24 to 26. When her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak, so they called his name Esau. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel, so his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. Well, what's in a name? We see here the birth of Esau and Jacob. Esau, the firstborn of the twins, coming out red and hairy. And because of that, they called him Esau. But Jacob came out hanging on to the heel of Esau, suggesting almost that you're not leaving me in here. And of course, if you remember the story, prior to the birth, there was a fight going on in that womb between both of them. And so he comes out hanging on to the heel of Esau, and they looked on him and called him Jacob, meaning heel catcher, supplanter, deceiver, defrauder. We would call that today con artist. Yes, that was the name he was called. And every day when someone spoke to him, they would call him heel catcher, supplanter, defrauder, deceiver. In other words, Jacob. And that became the mantra by which he lived. You see, naming is an action of authority. When we name something, we take authority over it. That is why in the beginning, in the creation, God caused all the animals to pass before Adam. And he says, you name them. He said, anything you name them, that's what they shall be called. Why? He had made man to have dominion in the earth. When we name something, we take authority over it. But not only do we take authority over it, but we declare its future. We speak into it what it shall be. By naming, we prophesy. And so they named Jacob, heel catcher, supplanter. And he lived according to that name. Yes. So much so that he conned his brother out of what was really his. Rather than standing and believing what God had said and prophesied to his mother whilst he was yet in the womb, he depended on sleight of hand. He depended on his cunning, and he connived with his mother to con his brother and father. We see him going to his uncle Laban and conning his way through. We see him coming back, and when he was coming back, trying to also deceive his brother, and so he split up his family into groups so that if anything, they wouldn't all die, still depending on his cunning. When the angel showed up to bless him, he was busy depending on his own cunning and strength, fighting with the angel, living according to what he was called. I wonder how many things in our lives and how many persons in our lives we have messed up by calling them what we see rather than what God said. Do you remember what God had said about Jacob? He told Rebekah that the elder, which would have been Esau, shall serve the younger. That the younger shall be great. In other words, the younger would carry the birthright. The younger was the crown prince. But here we have a prince being called crook. And when it was that God decided enough is enough and I've got to get you into your heritage, into what you were called to be, when the Lord blessed him after that wrestling match, he had to change his name from Jacob to Israel, because what he was called limited him from being what he should be. We may need to be changing some names. What is it that's in your life that you need to rename? Thank God these things don't need a deed poll. Let's change the names. There's power of life and death in your tongue. What have you been calling it? What have you been calling your children, your spouse, your job, your life? What names have you been calling them? Have you been calling them names according to what you see or according to what God said? Let's think about it. Who knows? You may even have to do some deed polls. It sounds humorous, but what's the meaning of your name? What's the meaning of the names you gave your children? What are we prophesying over them? Let's talk about it. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. And for more, join us at 9 a.m. on Sunday mornings at 10 Union Square, Crossroads. If you can't be there in person, join us virtually via Facebook Live.